Hi, it's Wednesday. It's 3 o'clock. Welcome to Together Unlocked, brought to you as always by Together 2012. We're creating a cultural legacy for the London 2012 Paralympics. We're led by disabled artists and we're based in the main host borough of Newham. I'm Ju Gosling, the artistic director, also an artist known as Ju90. With me, where she's been locked down in Canning Town since last March, is our chair, the artist and campaigner Julie Newman. But first, as always, we're going to go to the other end of our long wheeled virtual sofa to the West Midlands for some introductions and audio description, and maybe a little bit of talk about what you're going to be doing later as well.
So, good afternoon. It's Robin. I'm Robin Surgeon. Sorry, I was thrown there. So yes, sorry. I am in Sutton Coldfield at the other end of the long wheeled sofa, as Ju described. I am Robin Surgeon. I'm business director at Together 2012. Believe it or not, after that introduction, and I am also an artist known as Angry Fish. Sat here in our lovely warmish studio. The weather is just changing that little bit here, um, backwards and forwards, but there you go. So today I'll just give you a little bit of description. I am sporting my lovely silvery grey hair, although Tracy told me it was yellowing today for some strange reason. I I've got blue eyes behind rimless black armed glasses. And I am wearing today a kind of brown hooded sweatshirt. It's very comfy, very baggy, very kind of relaxy type sweatshirt with a nice brass zip on it, like a quarter zip. Um, and it's got black hoops from the chest down to the waist. And I'm going to point out, because everyone talks about their jewelry, and I never remember, I am also and always wearing a very nice gold wedding ring.
Hi, I'm Josh Surgeon. I'm one of the other hosts of Together. I've got long blonde hair, blue eyes, some facial hair, no glasses today. I need to take them off. I've been wearing them all morning. Today I'm wearing a grey sweatshirt that is in kind of maroon or claret stitching and a kind of thick, bold text. It says Sheffield Hallam University with a big H.
And that indeed is where you're a student, I believe.
It is indeed, yes.
So was it student stuff this morning?
A bit of student stuff, bit of general other work, bits and pieces, and then more student stuff. It's been a bit busy morning. I've been on Zoom since about 11:15 until about 10 to 3. So
It very much is the modern state, isn't it? We're all wearing comfy clothes, everybody's zoomed out. So, a bit later, we're going to be talking about Boris's announcements yesterday and what that means for all of us, and particularly those of us who are shielding. But to give you some audio description for me, like I say, my name's Ju Gosling. I have a self styled hennaed corona crop currently hidden under a black leather cap. I've got light olive skin with green eyes behind black plastic glasses. I've got black wrist braces, silver coloured jewellery. And because I believed the forecast more than because it is really terribly warm, I have one of my favourite t shirts on, which has got a photo. It's a black short sleeve t shirt with the photograph on it of a cat wearing sunglasses. And I've got a kind of bright, baggy lime green unzipped sweatshirt. In terms of my jewellery, because it's LGBT plus History Month, I am still wearing my pendant of a silver labris, or as Robin would describe it, a lesbian axe. Behind us, we have our Together 2012 graffiti banner. That's covered, if you could see it all, which you can't, in pictures of all of the different arts activities we run during the year. So that's everything from visual art and indeed live art, street art, carnival art, music, photography, filmmaking, dance, drama, and more. At the moment, what we're doing is we're delivering a program aimed at disabled people and whoever you want to bring with you in the mornings. That's our clubs program currently operating on Zoom, and we'll come back to that in a minute. We also deliver exhibitions, performances, screenings, and a whole range of other activities led by disabled people for everybody. And part of that is our Join In From Home programme, of which Together Unlocked is just a little bit. And also behind us, and finally, before we get on to Julie, who's been very patient considering she's our boss, I have a teddy bear ready to compete to see if it's going to be this week's medal wearer for the Clockwork Paralympics. The Clockwork Paralympics are coming up after 3:30, along with Josh's reports into sports and gaming. And before that, we'll have a virtual walk. And before that, we'll have some poems. But before that, Julie's going to introduce herself and give us some audio description.
Hi, I'm Julie Newman. I'm the chair, as you said. So here I sit like a chair. I have gold and silver hair. I have dark rimmed glasses, reputed to be green. I don't see it myself. I see them as dark rimmed. And today I'm wearing my very soft, cuddly sort of cerise, I think it is, but certainly a sort of pinky, purpley coloured fleece top with a little button down at the top, and the contrasting color is green.
Just like your glasses. But I'm
As you
interested
say.
in these coloured lights. You know, we've already established they have a ginger light in the West Midlands because Josh's hair looks ginger, whereas indeed it's blonde, and now it's apparently turning Robin's hair yellow. So I don't know quite what it's doing to your glasses, but from where I'm sitting, those glasses look very similar indeed to the colours on your lovely, warm, snuggly, comfortable sailing top.
I like your T-shirt. I have to say, it's one of my favourites, and it's about this tabby looking so cool. So it's a very cool cat look, which I think is excellent. I think you really envy it. I do have T-shirt envy.
I have to say at this point, Julie actually bought this T-shirt for me. Wonderful taste, wonderful taste, wonderful taste, darlings. And just to warn anyone who's not a regular viewer, chances are we'll be joined by a cat or two at some point during the show. If you're interested, and we know that the animals are more popular than we are, you can go to our pull down menu on our website, www.together2012.org.uk. And under the Together Unlocked TV menu, you will find a page on animal hosts. One of those animal hosts is our assistance dog, Merlot. Well, not our assistance dog, Merlot, Stara Plurger, who's another of our presenters, assistance dog, Merlot. And he's taking us for a virtual walk in Norfolk round about 3:30. So there's lots of animal information. In fact, I was giving a talk last night for LGBT plus History Month, and just as it started, I brought down these rainbow flags over, sort of creating a different kind of set. So over the top of the graffiti banner, we pulled down the rainbow flags, and just as I started the curtain, the flags parted like theatre curtains, and out stepped a black fluffy cat going, ta-da! So the more we stream, the more they seem to get into it. I know Julia, who's doing our wonderful live captions from Global Real Time Captioning, also has two cats who, after not taking any interest in the studio for years, are now apparently taking lots of interest in the cables. I have to lock my cables up, but that's just because I've got one.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of. I banish the cats from here if possible. Particularly Baby, who has a fondness for eating wires. This morning, she was trying to make her way through a phone charging cable, holding it she's got hands. It's so funny, and just biting the end off it, as you do.
Yes, Leonardo, who's the black fluffy one, is absolutely like that. We'd love to see your pictures of animals doing mad things. We've been locked down for nearly a year now, so we've actually sunk to that level. Please do send them in. Also, on a Friday, we dress up to go out to stay in. So if you fancy doing the same, After all, it's nice to not just wear comfy clothes at home. Then do send us your photos. I'm going to pop something up on the screen, but our website, our email address is info@together2012.org.uk. We'd also really like to see your poems, your artwork, your music. Send it in writing, send us in photographs, send us in videos. We'd love to have you on the show. And if you're waking up after the long sort of creative hibernation period that is so traditional at this time of year, we'd love to hear about your new projects. So please do get in touch.
Have you noticed how we still refer to films as videos? It's so interesting to me. I do it all the time when we're having the filmmakers and photographers groups on a Monday. Then sort of we're still talking about videos.
But they are videos, darling. They're files, perhaps. They're not
files,
film
yes.
because they're not being shot on film. So let's postpone that conversation till Monday when we always talk about film and photography. And if anybody remembers, let's chat about it then. Very soon, we're going to move on. We're going to have a report and some poetry from this morning's Together Pop Up Poetry Club. But first, we think we've got to spend just a few minutes just reflecting on the Prime Minister's announcements this week and what the future looks like. I mean, what did you take from it, Robin? Because obviously you've still got a teenager at school.
Yeah, I mean, some of it's quite surprising, and kind of the all the different sets of dates that they've given out, and with these 5-week blocks of time between each change of stage. I don't know. I haven't seen particularly why 5 weeks is the given time. I mean,
I can. It's they've said that it's 5 weeks because that's the amount of time it takes for any potential change to kind of happen and take effect, to then get the data from that, analyze the data from that, and then see if what they're doing is as effective as they want, more effective, less effective. So even though they've got, from my understanding, even though they've got these dates set out, kind of what they said on the press conference yesterday was if we if we get to that 5 week stage and the numbers aren't doing what we want, we can hold. We're not kind of it's not law that we're going to go to the next stage on X date. It's very much a we don't want to go backwards. We're going to be as cautious as we can, and if we need to either hold, then we will do. And if they do have to reverse it, that's not off the cards, even though it's a irreversible roadmap. I think they were still saying that actually,
Yes.
if it all goes a bit sideways, we are going to go backwards.
And I think they're going to have to. I mean, one of the things that was pointed out at the Association of Festival Organisers conference on Saturday that I went to was that most adults won't be fully vaccinated before October. And at the moment, the children's vaccination plan, there aren't even vaccines cleared for children. But currently, primary school age children are the group who are spreading it the fastest. So what you're going to have is a kind of country that's opening up, but the majority of people still won't be vaccinated. And the belief is that if you can stop people like us and older people getting ill in such large numbers, then you can allow infection rates to rise. But of course, that is all very experimental because in real life, nobody knows how well the vaccines are going to work on the groups who are most likely to go into hospital. It's all looking very promising. But I strongly suspect when Boris kept saying right up until the weekend, data, not dates, and suddenly we get these dates, and my heart sank a little bit because I thought, oh, he's given in to political pressure when actually it's just not possible to be able to predict these things. I mean, they were saying things on TV like, oh, the theatre's going to open up again. Well, for the briefing we had on Saturday, that was with huge caveats. That was theatres are going to open up again, but they're going to be maximum 50% capacity. Now, a lot of theatres can't afford to open on 50% capacity. But there was also an assumption that event organisers would administer tests to everybody as they came in. Now, you can imagine the looks on an awful lot of event organisers' faces, and actually, over the course of Saturday's conference, I've never seen so many events cancelled, because the more the government was saying, oh, it's going to be great, you can test everybody, the more people just went, well, actually, we've got no space to do that. We've got no capacity to do that. We rely on volunteers. How could most of our volunteers are over the age of 60, so they're most vulnerable. So, yeah, I felt slightly gaslighted. I thought the stuff on Saturday was a lot more realistic.
And I think that the issue also comes that, it's, and I don't want to be negative, but that kind of, oh, well, you're all going to do testing, changes the burden of responsibility to the festival organizer or the swimming club or the head teacher, whoever it is. And I think that isn't that helpful. And I mean, I understand dates just give people some idea of a framework, and they've very clearly said that they don't have to stick to those dates. But of course, in terms of swimming, for example, Swim England and British Swimming wanted pools opened yesterday. They've said the 12th of April for pools to open, except for school swimming. School swimming can start again from a week Monday when schools open, but only if it is a normal part of the school curriculum, within that school space, and not sharing visiting schools and things like that. And then sort of club activity can start again from the 12th of April, but only for under 18s, which is kind of bizarre, really, particularly as they're the ones, we keep saying, are the ones that,
yes.
yeah. And I guess I suppose that they are, what we want to do is, it still is kind of be realistic, but have some sense of hope in it, that there is positive change. The fact that they've been able to say, well, look, here is a map, rather than, no, we're staying as we are, it just kind of gives some people that bit of hope. I mean, I
Yes,
know.
and I think it's really important to be aware that we're in a very, very different position to 6 months ago. We have vaccines, we know they work. Yes, we've got to get better vaccines. Yes, we've got to get people vaccinated, but it is a totally, totally different scenario. I mean, I'm still a bit concerned that they're going, oh, yes, we'll have COVID every winter, because I just don't see China, Taiwan, New Zealand, Australia. There's large parts of the world who simply won't accept that they have endemic covered. It just won't happen. So, again, as artists traveling internationally, you sort of think, well, will they be so keen to book British artists? Well, in fact, if you have to pay for a quarantine hotel and somebody from New Zealand and Taiwan doesn't, I think it's very obvious. My days of going to Australia have probably come to an end. But again, of course, the government may change that policy as well. Nobody is really sure. I think the key difficulty in all of these things around dates, when we come back to the arts, which of course is mostly what we're talking about, but I think it also impacts on sport, is cancellation insurance. You cannot get cancellation insurance. And that's the problem. You can say, well, we expect to be able to do such and such in August because the roadmap says that we can. But you've only got to have one of those 5-week stages pull back, and your event may fall into that hole. And every event costs a considerable amount of money at the beginning. I mean, it really does. What I do think is really good news for artists is the being able to get back to work at some point in the summer in a physical space. Because if you need to perform and you need to rehearse, I mean, I think most people who aren't solo artists are going, well, we could stream. We could stream to an audience, but we've got to be in the same theatre to rehearse and to record that show. And I think those things, such as they are looking much, much more promising. I think a lot of TV and film have got back to work, partly because there is a government insurance scheme for the film industry, which doesn't cover live events. But nonetheless, those protocols, people have got used to the testing and the transport and the bubbling. So I think work for artists is really going to open up, but it's going to be held back still by the fact that, like you say, if you've got to have social distancing in a theatre, in practice, that just may not be possible. Now, in a year's time, with everybody vaccinated, we should be able to, fingers crossed, go back to kind of standard audiences. But it does look, certainly with everything that was being discussed on Saturday, like, yeah, I'm not making any plans this year other than digital ones, because I know the digital ones I can definitely go ahead with. Did you want to add anything, Julie, or shall we move on from this not exactly depressing subject, but onto the pop-up poetry club?
I think pop-up poetry would be good. Um,
So how did it go this morning?
It was lovely as usual. We welcomed Alison back, which took a mighty burden off of my shoulders because my alphabets kept getting wrong in the warm up. So happily, alphabet was restored. The theme this morning was dreams, and I think everybody really engaged with it very, very quickly and very easily. Some people read out the lyrics of songs, which was interesting because it was interesting to hear them without the songs playing in my mind.
Yes, I mean, I think for anybody who's just joined us, it's worth explaining. Most of our clubs are on Zoom, but our poetry club is by phone. And that's very much to take account of the fact that many people don't have internet access. So, what we do is we phone you and get you onto a group call at our expense by 10:30 on a Wednesday morning. And that whole process is led by Noel Guinan, who's our engagement support worker. When you get together, you have a bit of a warm up in exercises and breathing, and then people share a poem or lyrics that they've found. It might be something that they've written or something that they've found online, or they've got a book at home. And then you move on and write on your theme, don't you? Which you kind of know a week in advance. So later we'll be telling you next week's theme, so you can join in from home. Again, we would love to see or indeed hear your poems if you want to send us a sound file or a video, and I will call it a video. So how did it go? What was the sort of general mood?
It was quite upbeat. I think, as I said, everybody could associate either with daydreams. Nightmares really didn't feature. It was mostly dreams and dreaming, and it was quite relaxing.
Yes, I mean, I looked at the poems beforehand and I noticed nobody had got into the whole sort of covered dreaming thing, because I'm not really aware of what it is, but I've seen various articles through the years saying it's quite common. I think lots of people have had their sleep patterns disturbed because every other pattern of life has been disturbed. But there's been people who, yeah, I think it has impacted on dreams. I think for me, I just end up dreaming that I'm not in London, where I've been in a very small kind of area for almost 12 months. So, yeah, I'm just generally dreaming about anywhere other than here. So, could we hear your poem first?
It's titled This Is a Dream. Dragons rising with the dawn, hills ablaze in the light of morn, grasses greener than green could be, monkeys playing in the tree, fishes swim in the bright pink clouds, and music dancing with the crowds, the host of flowers in the fields. Or does the dawn break now so bleak, the sunshine dull, the rays so weak? No colours play in the light of day, the grass looks brown, the clouds look grey, no creatures stir or dance around. The world is dark and misery abounds, unfettered by the hint of spring. But wait, let's stop a while and pause. What difference lies from what was then and now can be? What perfect symmetry hides beyond the clouds? What clarity might there be if daylight dreams can be found at night, and those which in the nights abound come into the light of day? Can dragon wings now fill the sky with fishes flying up on high? Can monkeys dance amongst the trees and flowers sing soft with the breeze, to welcome change with open arms and relish dreams with all their charms. Can reality suspend its disbelief?
Oh, that was brilliant as always. So, wow.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you know, as a writer, you keep telling us you're not. You manage to come up with these um, beautiful pieces of writing every single week that always,
Hour.
Yeah.
yeah, in half an hour, and you always conjure up all this really good, imagery that gives us our own place to go within the poem that you're reading.
Oh,
I
that's
think I
kind.
suspect it's partly because you haven't had access to your studio for a year, have you? There's so many
No.
things you haven't had access to. It's all sort of boiling up through the poetry. Whereas I haven't written anything in terms of poetry since last summer. I just got to a point of, I think one more person died, and somehow I just, yeah, I'm thinking about going back to it soon, but I'm completely the opposite. But here is a poem from Dawn Barber, who's one of my favourite people from Together, and indeed I think has been volunteering with us off and on since 2012. And Dawn's somebody who doesn't have a mobile phone and doesn't have internet access, so we were just so pleased when we finally got a work. I think it took us 3 months to get somebody to build us a functioning phone system, didn't it? That was so 20th century. But there you go. So this is Dawn Barber Dreams. My dreams are like a maze where I try to fight to get out, but I don't succeed. They take me to places that are so strange: anxiety, lost, and panic. The next step is on trains, buses, cars, big, frightening buildings. But if I go deeper and deeper into the dream, I might be able to turn it round in my hand and get to where I want to be in a much lovelier place within me. Thank you, Dawn. So you've got one from Glory Sango, Robin.
I have. Here we go. So this is from Glory. Glory is a one of our regular contributors, and this is called Train Track. When I was going on the District Line train, I was going to South Kensington. I went outside and I heard screaming. She was swimming in the water. I went to jump into the water quickly and save her from the water. I put her on the ground and put both my hands on her heart. She started coughing and she was breathing. She said, "You saved my life. How can I thank you?"
Our hero, Glory Sango. Although I strongly suspect, which is what I quite often say to Glory in the workshops, there's a tiny bit of somebody else's script crept in there, which is one of Glory's issues. He's got perfect recall.
But I think we had a little bit of a laugh, actually, all of us together.
We
with-
all laughed at him for being a hero.
No, we loved the concept of Gloria as a superhero. I just think it's wonderful. It's a wonderful image and it's a wonderful dream.
Yes, and I think we all need to get into, well, maybe you'd say I wouldn't, but I was doing a talk last night, and I don't give talks all the time. It's just that it's LGBT plus History Month, and people were talking, particularly younger people, about not having the confidence or not feeling brave enough to speak. And I think it's really important that everybody just gets in touch with that superhero inside and has the courage to say, my voice is as good as everybody else's. And I just think it's so important at the moment to just really understand that you're as good as everybody else, you're as important as everybody else, and what you have to say matters as much as what anybody else has got to say. And this is what Crystal Peasy has to say about dreams. This poem is about dreams. Dreams can be daydreams, dreams can be night dreams, dreams can be nightmares. Dreams can be sweet, dreams can be wonderful, dreams can be different colours. Dreams can be horrifying, dreams can be true and bring out sunshine in me. Dreams can be part of a woman's life, dreams can be emancipating. Most of the time, my dreams come true, and very rarely they don't. So well done, Crystal, and I hope all of your dreams come true in the future. We're going to move on now and go for our regular virtual walk with one of the assistance dogs. And now, as we have been indeed for quite some months, we're going to go for a virtual walk in Norfolk with Merlot, the assistance dog, who is accompanied, and we get a couple of shots of them usually by his owner, Steraplergia and Hannah Facey. Julie, I believe you're going to do some audio description as usual. If you want to watch this walk again, we have a highlights and links page like the animal hosts page. It's on the website in the pull down menu or linked from the Main Together Unlocked TV page. Um, but here we have it with audio description.
Thank you. Merlot is a black lab, and at the moment, with the camera on the harness on his back, you can see his little ears and the top of his head and his blue collar peeping out. He's in a forest which has been in quite regularly, but the snow seems to have gone. Sky and a bit of sun on the horizon. And off he goes at quite a moderate pace for him, going past some pink candy canes, enormous pink candy canes on the right hand side, which I wasn't really expecting. But it's quite interesting how the leaves are all around, and the landscape has changed from being white to very brown and green and black. And he's paused, he's looking around. I think he's waiting for his people. Or maybe he's just having a think about being in the forest. And off he goes. He's moving up towards a round wooden bench around a tree on the left-hand side. And he's progressing past at still quite a moderate rate for him. He's going through the trees and he's heading towards an open field where the trees give way to field of green. I think it looks very green in the distance. He's paused and he's waiting again for his people. He's very considerate, is Merlot. And off he goes again. No, he says, where are they? I need to get on, you know. This is very important. And he's picked up his pace. Yes, he's having a little trot. And indeed it is green. He's coming towards the greenness of the grasses and the weeds and the fresh growth, and actually that looks like bulbs to me. That looks like daffodils. And he's moving past and turning round, and there's his people. He's being awfully patient. They're calling him over there, and he says, well, I've been here before. Yes, I know. Yes, I better get on. And here he goes. He waited patiently, and then he's off. He's actually having a little bit of a snuffle round at the moment in the leaves.
Is that a bluebell?
No, I think it was a daffodil. Oh no, it's not. I think it's too early for a bluebell.
Well, that's what I would have thought, but something's blue.
Something was definitely blue. Maybe it was a crocus. Who's to say? There's certainly he didn't stop to look and check it out, did he? He just galloped past it. But he's going past a clump of leaves again, which do look to me like daffodils. And then he's leading his people up towards the field. And it's definitely greener there. It's the first glimpse of green we've had since, of course, it was snowy. It just goes to show what happens underneath the snow. He's moving quite gently now, and now he's come to a stop.
Yes, it's ironic, isn't it? We've all seen the seasons change in Norfolk, but we haven't seen the seasons change in Newham. And of course, it is still only February. So, we're Brits. We know better. The seasons will be changing backwards and forwards with monotonous regularity for the next couple of months. But now it is time to move on to this week's Clockwork Paralympics. As always, Josh is going to introduce it and do the commentary. But first, let's introduce our hopefuls for medal wearing. Do you want to introduce yours first, Robin? Who's
So this is
representing Birmingham 2022 this week?
this is Mini Ted, who, as you can see, has got a lovely. So it's a tiny little teddy, although full grown, and it is from somewhere called Ingestra Hall, which is a sort of educational outward bounds place built into an old, like a country home, and so wearing a red ribbon, and little Ted is I don't know, a sort of coffee color, I would have said, actually, mainly, but with white ears and a white muzzle, and very cute.
Well, we have the return of Eleanor, who I would say is honey coloured and maybe about 30 centimetres tall. I'd like to say I won her in a raffle, but in fact, my previous assistant's dog, Jeannie, won her in a raffle at a Shallow School book collectors conference. So she is dressed in an old fashioned brown gym slip with an orange tie and a white blouse. Do you want to hold her while we watch the sport? So, this week's competitors, last week we had the return of the Winter Paralympians, the Clockwork Snowmen. But today we've actually had some very disappointing news on some of our new athletes. I was looking forward, as some of you know, to the arrival in the post of a whole bunch of new athletes. In fact, the elephants turned out not to be clockwork at all. You pull a string and they whiz along on wheels. And the group of 3 walking toys turned out to be one solitary one who couldn't walk at all. It's fine, they're all disabled, but they can't actually.
It sounds far more like the Paralympics.
It gets more like that all the time. I am trying to invent new classifications and I did try new racetracks, but in the end, I was forced to admit defeat and go back to the eBay catalogue. What I have done with this race, we've got the Clockwork Pigs racing, and they are so quick that I've actually slowed the footage down because it's almost impossible to tell which competitor is which otherwise. And we know how competitive you para athletes get. So, the way we play this for anybody who hasn't joined in before is pick a side. So, literally, in our case, you pick the right hand side of the screen or the left hand side of the screen, which would be my right hand on the left or my left hand on the right. That is right, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'll go with that's correct, because otherwise it gets really confusing.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking that. As always, too, we have spectators stroke. Well, nobody invaded the track this week, but we do have feline spectators as usual. So let me pop this up, Josh. I'm also going to try and turn the sound right down, actually, because the clockwork makes a sort of strange noise as it is, and when it's being slowed down, it's even odder.
So, in the interest of integrity, before any accusations are levelled, we've gone to the left-hand side of the screen today. So we're back onto our familiar racetrack of our mosaic tiles, which just makes me miss the swimming pool even more than I already do. Some green banisters and a very multicolour, picturesque-looking bookcase in the background. So once the competitors are up and running, we will be ready to go. So we have 2 pink pigs, Birmingham on the left and London on the right. So off we go. And in true Clockwork fashion, they have gone for a complete and utter route of their own. And I do believe that with that crossover at the start, it is a 3-peat victory for Birmingham 2022.
Yay!
It's true. It's true. It's true. You have won again.
Well, on that note,
Do excuse me. Sorry.
we have to award Teddy a halo. because the medals would crush her totally. So we have a halo that really doesn't look anything like it as a key ring attached to her head
Not at
in
all.
the first place. I was going to say, I mean,
It just
there
makes
is,
it so difficult when you've got hundreds of huge medals around the flat. We only have one gold plastic one, which the mayor gave us in 2012.
I was going to pick up on this idea that we're ultra competitive. Just as a slight aside, that I actually got banned from taking part in all of the kind of guess the weight or guess the number of Smarties in a jar competitions at Emily's Summer Fates, because I always won them, because I would sit and I would calculate it. I'd like in my head, I'd measure the cake, I'd measure the diameter, I'd like do it all and come up with like the answer. They'd like, did you weigh it? I'm like, no. So yeah, there you go. That's how bad I am.
I would say, do you realise this is supposed to be fun? But of course, you find that fun.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah,
the guy has got all of these medals. But just to say, the teddy bear, what's it called again? Apart from
Mini Ted.
Minnie Ted. So Minnie, that was the name of my grandmother, Minnie. I think it was a very popular name around sort of 1900-ish. But so Minnie and Eleanor are taking part in the virtual bear hunt. Remind me of the name of the book. Who wrote the bear hunt, Julie?
My mind's gone blank.
Michael Rosen?
Oh, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
remind me. So there you go. So Michael Rosen, who thank goodness recovered from a very, very nasty bout of COVID. I think the bear hunt was going on long before that, because the idea is you put a teddy bear in your window and then when children are walking past, they can hunt that bear. But things really ramped up once young people started just going out for daily exercise, and then the virtual bear hunt started. So anyway, you've got to have some kind of medal wearer, haven't you? If the
Yeah.
Clockwork toys are not going to be able to wear it themselves. I can't post you the clockwork toy because of the yes, because of quarantine and the fact we've had no access to the post for about a year. So on that happy note, it's time for some real sport and some gaming with Josh Surgener.
Yeah, there's not a huge amount to report on, really, unfortunately. The Australian Open has now finished. I mean, Novak Djokovic won his 18th Grand Slam, I think. So I guess well done. He's probably bored of them at this point. But Naomi Osaka won, I think, her third or fourth. I hope that's right. I didn't double check.
It's 4th out of 4.
Was it
Four championships from 4
4
finals.
wins?
Mm.
Which is not a bad stat for a day at the office, I guess. But it's nice, certainly in the women's side. It's nice to see some of those younger athletes kind of start to come through. People like Coco Graf as well, that have, to see that there are kind of young athletes pushing through. Because that's always been the kind of the thing with sport, that you've had periods of people being amazing and kind of dominating, and then nothing really happens for a bit, and then you get another period of kind of domination. So
And
it's
I think
nice to
it's
see that
tennis.
actually there's younger people kind of coming through and pushing through. I
And I
guess
think because the tennis circuit, like so many sports, has been so disrupted, those breaks you would expect to impact perhaps on sort of less experienced players more. So, yeah, I think the younger players did particularly well. What other sport is actually being played at the moment? I mean, I know that, as you said last week, it's been men's rugby, but not the women's. It's been men's football, but not the women's.
It is the first day of the third test of cricket, isn't it, Josh?
it is. When I checked the score this morning, because with time zones it's happening in I think we were 81 for 4.
God.
Which, for anyone that doesn't follow cricket, it's not great. It's not going well for England at 81 for 4. That is not not a particularly good score. So hopefully they can remember how to play cricket, um,
I
to
wonder
kind of come
Great
back.
British spirit. I mean, I think when England or Great Britain or the United Kingdom, depending on which sport it is, does well, it's great. But but I always expect us to lose. It's like that thing where every time you get to the World Cup, there's this kind of collective delusion that goes on for several weeks, and yet you kind of know before that we can't possibly win. And when we don't even get into the final, that just becomes really predictable. But in between, somehow we all believe that actually we've got a chance. I guess that's why we're so supportive of our Prime Minister.
I will say that England are the defending world champions in cricket, just to cut them a little bit of slack, even if they do appear to have forgotten that.
But if you looked at the average over the last 20 years, I don't think we'd find them at the top of the list.
No, probably not. And then the other thing, we talked at the start of the show around the kind of potential dates and things for sport to start happening. But I mean, like we said, there are so many question marks around if and when those dates will kind of be held to. But it's nice to have some sort of semblance of an idea, certainly for those kind of younger athletes that are kind of feel like they're missing out. That you've got years ahead, and there is kind of more time. So it's nice to be able to have that. I mean, certainly speaking as a coach, it's nice to kind of have those dates when we might be able to, or at least to train in. There's no kind of real news on amateur sport kind of returning. I know that through a lot of the stuff around kind of trials for the Olympics and the Paralympics that are currently still happening, um, it's kind of the elite group only, those that are kind of already in that kind of Olympic Paralympic pathways. And I think that was kind of what came out from a lot of the national governing bodies yesterday. And today is that for the time being, it's going to have to be those elite guys.
I was going to say, just to kind of reiterate that, is that it is having a massive impact. I mean, it's kind of odd that when there is absolutely no swimming going on, it's the period of time when our club in particular and a lot of the national swimming registrations have to happen, because you have to be registered to be insured to participate in the rest of it. And I had some stats through this morning that are showing that where swimmers are at a competitive level, just club competitive level, there is kind of not much drop off. But actually below that, kind of the developing and the learn to swim programs, clubs are being absolutely decimated. Now, whether in time that will come back, but I think there's gonna lot there's no help, for example, for a lot of sports clubs that are amateur sports clubs to survive this lockdown, because they've lost their income and then won't have the income in place to go back to start to hire swimming pools or sports pavilions or whatever it is. So I think there is something there that needs to be looked at as well.
Yes, I mean, I think again, from going back to that earlier discussion around the arts, the big organizations are going to be able to test people coming in, and they're going to have the capacity to social distance the spectators in the same way that they can socially distance the audience. The problem comes when, like you say, with amateur, everything's run by volunteers. Where do you set up the tests? Who does the tests? What happens? I mean, somebody said, well, if you get positive results, what are you supposed to do? Do you just send that person back on public transport? Are you supposed to have a means of isolating them? You know, there's just so many questions that just go, well, actually, it's easier just not to open at the moment. I think in terms of buying tickets, it is those big commercial stadium events where you can be much, much more sure, because they do have the capacity to do all of those things. And the ticket sellers, which is one of the biggest ticketing agencies, for example, are now offering a complete package to be able to sort of run tests and all sorts of different things at gates. So yeah, I think it's that high end, in the same way we're saying artists might get back to work even if they don't have live audiences. I think again that's true of elite athletes, that can go ahead with a televised audience or a streamed audience. Yeah, I mean, we haven't even talked about amateur theatre, which is such a big thing, but I'm very aware that the sort of what we would call voluntary arts as a sector has really kept together. They've had weekly meetings as the voluntary arts sector, every single week since last April. They've been meeting on a Thursday morning, but it doesn't mean they're able to run activities.
No.
I think, we found that, didn't we, with the Together Open exhibition in November? Most of the art groups that people would be going to in Newham have not operated, or there's been some very innovative things like painting in the parks over the summer, but of course you can't do that over the winter. So what's happening with gaming, Josh?
Um, Similar to sport, there's not a huge amount of gaming news out. Kind of when I looked around, there's no kind of big announcements and kind of new things happening. Nintendo had an event, I think, over the weekend, um, when they announced some new characters. But I think lots of people were expecting big, kind of announcements of new games or new kind of installments to series, and it didn't really happen. There's kind of gaming conferences and things that happen each year that are normally kind of the big announcements of things. Um, but as of yet, I haven't really seen any information about kind of if they're happening, when they're happening, how they're happening. They're normally hosted in the States, primarily, but in a similar thing to sport and theatre and everything, I think there's so much uncertainty that people don't really know what's going on. So I think lots of companies are just putting stuff out on Twitter and things like that, but it means it doesn't get that kind of, unless you happen to be following the person or you're on Twitter, within the time it gets posted, unless it kind of, gets really big kind of engagement. I think lots of things are flying under the radar at the moment in
Or
everything.
perhaps are just postponed because, I
Yeah.
mean, like you were saying, if you're going to launch something, you're putting money into it.
Yeah.
So you need to know that if you're selling toys that relate to the game, the non-essential shops are going to be open. You need to know if it's a tie-in to a film. The film's got to come out into the cinema. If the film isn't going to go into the cinema, do you still bring the game out if it's just going to go on to stream? And how do you have a conference if people can't fly? And yes, I think yesterday to describe it as a roadmap was a bit like saying, here's a paper map in the pitch dark, but we're not going to give you a torch. It's really kind of, it appears to be really helpful till you try to look at it. And then you go, oh, there's that gas light again. My goodness, that keeps coming on and off with regularity right through COVID, doesn't it? Are you still beating Robin at Super Mario Kart? So let's bring this down to the micro level of gaming.
Yeah, here I am.
Okay. Okay.
He's getting better. He's starting to come kind of third and fourth, and then the occasional ninth. So
How
he's
is it
getting there.
possible in a household where you've only got, I say only, when there's four of you in the house, how can you come ninth, Robin? How
Well,
did you
no, I'll go with no, because so with Mario Kart you have the options of either playing like whoever's in the room, or you play you also have the CPU. So if you have if the computer is also entering characters into the race, so we now have Tracy is also now racing and is actually, I know that was going to sound really condescending. Someone who has played a lot less computer games than any of us. Um, Tracy's taken to Mario Kart quite well and has actually beaten me a couple of times. However, I did come first once against everybody the other day. But I think so. But the idea is that what Mario Kart does is you can have up to 12 people in a race. So if it's just you playing, it's 11 you and 11 in the computer. Whereas if it's me, Tracy, and Patton and Josh, then the computer throws in another 8 people. But they're also really mean because they throw bombs at me and electrocute me and all sorts of things. I'm
This is just when I was thinking, oh yes, this is one of these nice games that doesn't have all these violent things, and you've just spoilt it all over again.
well,
You only
I
get
don't think it's not violent per se. Yeah, it's rated like a 3. I think it's a children's game,
yeah.
but it is quite funny that how personally Dad takes it. Whether it's kind of one of us or the computer. And a lot of the time, things like lightning happens to everybody, and it just makes you really small. But you would think that the computer had kind of walked up and said, "This is for you," and slapped him, kind of thing. He takes it so personally.
If I ever
every
meet
time.
Mr. Nintendo, I have a word to put forward.
I just wish they'd do it for the PS4, because having invested in that is all we're going to have. And you've not driven for a year. You'd at least
No.
like to be behind a virtual wheel.
I connected it to my iPad, but I wasn't sure whether I have to. Do I have to have things like steering wheels, or can I just use the controls on the iPad?
Is that for the Mario Kart app?
Yeah.
No, you can literally play it. Like it's touchscreen. You just kind of tilt or slide. I think you can choose. You don't need any additional things.
Okay, I'll practice quietly in the background.
Well, in that case, I had no idea. So for everybody out there who's somehow managed to get themselves an expensive iPad, so with the game, you can use it like a console and use the touch screen.
No. So there is the game of Mario Kart 8, which is a Switch game, which is what we're playing.
And
And
then
then
all the bells and whistles, but I'm just thinking we've not talked about using the iPad for gaming at all, have we?
yeah, there is a separate Mario Kart app that you can for iPhone, iPad. I don't know if it's available on Android, but no, Nintendo probably is. There is it has very similar tracks, but it plays kind of differently. And I don't actually know if you're playing other people or not. I'm not entirely sure. It's not really easy to tell. But I mean, it's good fun. If you don't have £200 to £300 to spend on a Switch, you can download. Is it free or is it like a couple of
Free.
pounds? I think it is free.
It's completely free. I downloaded it at the weekend, but I haven't had time to have a go at it yet.
Well,
It's great fun. I remember playing it when sorry, Drew. I remember playing it when it came out, and spending far too long playing it. So it is great fun.
Well, maybe you can give us a report on that next week, and
Yeah.
we can, if there's nothing big coming out, we can go back to looking at free games and phone games, which is something I'm always keen on. I think as well, I mean, I know I'm not the only one here with limited mobility in my hands, but sometimes playing something on a phone because it's so small is actually easier because you're not having to move your hands so much. I mean, people say to me, "Why do you send long texts?" And I go, "Because I can type with one finger and it's going to predict what I'm going to say." That's why it's just requires far, far less effort than actually typing up an email. So yeah, I think sometimes it's a bit counterintuitive, isn't it? The small stuff you think would be fiddly can be more accessible. But we'll have to see whether my small phone is as accessible as your big iPad or vice versa. So on Friday, however, as we said earlier, we will be dressing up to go out to stay in. I think after being the ladies from Llangollen last Friday, Julie and I are planning another joint outfit. Do you have any plans for joint outfits in the West Midlands?
Not currently.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure yet because we have an aptitude workshop going on here on Friday, so yet to be decided quite how our involvement will take place. I'm thinking maybe something from the Full Monty.
Oh no!
No.
Please don't.
Unless it's before.
That will not be a joint outfit. No.
No, that's easy. There's no outfit other than a balloon.
Well, of course, usually, not necessarily this week, but usually on a Friday, we also have Tracy Surgeon in the first half. So there is the potential for the partners to be doing a joint outfit. We'd love to see your outfits, whether they're your stunning outfits that you cannot wait to wear to go to a gig, or whether they're a fantasy outfit that you've just made up, or some fancy dress, or some cosplay. We'd love to see some cosplay. I don't think we're going to be quite in that league somehow.
Well, what can I say? I must just remind people the topic for poetry next week is shoes.
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 Brilliant. And if you would like to join in with Friday morning's art club, drop us a line to info@together2012.org.uk. That on a Friday is a still life session on Zoom from 11 to 12. Because it's on Zoom, we take a photograph of the still life. So we'll also be putting that up on Friday on the highlights and links page so you can join in with the art club from home. But for now, I think it's time to say goodbye. Should we say goodbye from the West Midlands first?
Goodbye from us.
Bye.
And from the Teddies, of course, but I'm actually not going to wave a goodbye from ours. I'm just going to say stay home, stay creative, stay well. Look forward to seeing you again soon.